Welcome to the Cell Soul Source podcast. I'm Jackie, a chiropractor, yogi, and Akashic reader, and I'm here to activate healing in light workers of all kinds so they can serve from an empowered place and fulfill their purpose with ease, awe, and wonder. Hello, and welcome to today's episode where I am going to share for the first time outside of my close circle of people my experience with PTSD. I will start from the beginning. I'll share the story, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to weave everything together and show you how the energetics work in the background using my own story. I was with a patient and I had to leave the room to go and get something. And when I did, the receptionist at the time was leaving to go home, and I saw a letter sticking out of my handbag. And she said, "I've popped that in your handbag to read. Don't read it now." So of course, I had to read it immediately. And when I opened it, I read the words, "Please take this as a formal complaint." I dropped the letter and I went into shock. It seemed as though my brain exploded into a million shards of glass, and each one of those shards of glass fell off the top of a cliff and just kept falling into an abyss. The thump in my chest was so hard that I felt myself leaving my body. My arms were completely numb. My eyes went blurry, and in that moment, I was in complete shock. But I still had a patient on the bed in another room. So I had to gather myself, go downstairs, finish that treatment, finish the rest of the day, and get myself home. I didn't speak about what had happened because I couldn't. Eventually, I managed to get it out, and I never spoke about it again. I got up the next day and I tried to go to work. My journey to work felt like every car, every pedestrian was a potential threat. I was hypervigilant. Every time somebody went to cross the road, I was terrified. I got to work. I struggled to open the front door, and I struggled to step over the threshold. But I managed to do it. And I kept forcing myself to do that for the next 8 months. My partner is amazing and kept saying, if you had broken your leg, you would not be going to work. But I felt like if I didn't keep going, I might not make it. So I felt like I had to keep putting one foot in front of the other. I promised myself that I would give it 12 months, and if I didn't feel any better after 12 months, I would give it up. In those 8 months, I would shake every time I was with a patient. I was not enjoying what I was doing. I had flashbacks every time somebody had a piece of paper in their hand. So, for example, a receptionist would walk towards me with a piece of paper in her hand, just a note, and the same thing would happen. My brain would explode into a million shards of glass. Those shards would catapult off the side of the cliff. The jolt in my chest would make my energy leave my body, and my arms would go numb. That happened every time there was an envelope on the floor. So we have letterboxes in the door. And whenever there was an envelope on the floor, that used to happen. Every time I could hear a phone conversation, so a telephone conversation while I was treating. Every time a colleague came to me with a question, that visceral response would happen over and over again. It happened multiple times every single day. And I spent every single night on my bed with mala beads. So for those of you who don't know, it is a string of 108 beads. And you say traditionally a mantra or an affirmation. As you touch one bead, you pass the string through your hands, you touch the next bead, and you repeat the mantra. I knew that if I didn't sleep, I was not going to survive this experience. And so I did whatever I could to get myself to sleep. And I used to sit with the mala beads, and I did it 108 times. Sometimes I had to go round twice in order to feel myself calm enough to go to sleep, so that I could get up and repeat the whole process the next day. After 8 months, I remember seeing a client or a patient and not being terrified. I didn't enjoy the experience, but I wasn't terrified. And for me, that was a little green shoot. And I carried on working, never to the same enjoyment and excitement as I had before, but I thought that I was better. So I'll go back and I'll fill in a few blanks for you. What happened in reality was I received that letter. I eventually was able to read the rest of the letter and find out what it was about. And the particular patient in question, I was under the impression that I had left him in the care of another professional and executed my care of duty to the best of my ability. And when I received this letter, it was 18 months after I had last seen that patient. So in my mind, I looked at my filing cabinet that was full of hundreds, if not thousands of files, and I saw every single one of those as a potential threat. I had to respond to the letter going through my insurance and my governing body, and then I had to wait. There's a 3-month period where they can come back to your letter. And you can imagine how uncomfortable that was for 3 months. In reality, nothing ever came of that. So I received a letter and I wrote a letter back. When you take out all the white noise, that is what happened. But what happened in my nervous system was very different. In my nervous system, I believed that my livelihood, my job, was being threatened. And that is one of your base needs. So whenever our shelter, our food, our health, our job, our money is threatened, it will take you down into your base energy center and you will switch into survival mode. And that's where I lived for 8 months. And then, like I say, I thought that I had the green shoots of getting better. But I was doing the yoga, I was doing the meditating, and every so often something would still happen. It would come out of left field and it would trigger me. And again, I would be awake at night. I would be overthinking. I enjoyed some catastrophic thinking at times. And I remember wondering, for anybody that knows me, I'm one of those annoying people who is naturally just 9 out of 10 happy. And if I remember, I don't know, I've got a slice of cake downstairs, I'm a 10. And I remember being really sad because I didn't know if I would ever be happy again. I had moved from the fight or flight and I had gone into a fawning response. So I was still in survival mode. I was just in a different type of response. I was just numb, but I was also trying to fawn over people. I was trying to make sure that nobody else was going to do this to me. So I started over delivering in my sessions, because if I did more, it created the illusion that I was safe. It meant that I was writing copious notes, again, trying to risk control, because that gave me the illusion of safety. But I knew that I wasn't actually safe, because every now and again I would still be triggered. Eventually, after the last time of coming home and going, I can't live like this anymore, I ended up booking in for a therapy called EMDR. For those of you that don't know, I highly recommend. It really allowed me to detach my emotions from the event. So whereas before I couldn't even talk about it, I certainly couldn't talk about it without getting emotional. Now I could disentangle my emotions from the event, and I started to notice the wisdom from that experience. And every experience has got wisdom, it's got lessons for us to learn. And I started to discover that I had had such a strong response because it had touched my greatest fear. My greatest fear has always been making a mistake. It's always been around failing. And when I started to really dial my awareness into this, I noticed that this had been playing out before this experience. I had feedback before this experience that I had a blockage around fear. Fear had been in my energetic field since I was born. So I had the anterior pelvic tilt because my hip flexors were pulling me so tight because they were in a stress response. My body was constantly tight. So I was the person having a massage going, I could be doing something better with my time. I don't know how people sit in a bath and enjoy it. What a waste of time. And it was because my nervous system did not feel safe to relax. And my energy was really inconsistent. It would come and go. So when I had energy, I would ride that wave and I would do a lot. I'm a manifesting generator, so I can do a lot. But then I would burn myself out. But because I kept saying yes to people, I still had a list as long as your arm. I had no breaks in between. I quickly burned myself out. Emotionally, I was obviously being triggered all the time. I was triggered when the patient didn't rebook. I was triggered when the phone rang and the receptionist went, "Hang on, I'll just have to ask her." They were usually just asking if they could change appointments or did I treat this? But the smallest thing would trigger me because I was working in the energy of fear. And I had been before this experience. This experience came to highlight it for me so that I could dissolve it and move past it to the gift that's on the other side. I was so scared of making a mistake. My mind used to go through the what ifs all the time, and it was always what if worst case scenario. It was never what if best case scenario. So when you dissolve this blockage, you are finally free to relax. For those of you that think you don't know how to relax, you can't remember how to relax, you never feel like you're relaxed, it's quite possible that you have this blockage too. And it doesn't feel safe for your system to relax. And when I was able to do this, I went from being scared of everything to literally thinking, I can't stuff this up. I actually can't make a mistake. I have such trust in the universe that I am being supported and guided at every single moment, even if it doesn't look like it's perfect, even if it doesn't look the way I want it to, because I feel safe now. I can relax. I can let things play out how they're supposed to for my highest good and healing. And when I was able to relax, I was able to start creating the kind of sessions that light me up. Can you imagine as a healer doing it that way around? Instead of creating sessions that the patient or the client or the student wants, you create them around what lights you up. And let me tell you, their results get better. They get bigger, they get faster, they feel lighter when you do it that way around. I was able to prioritize myself. I was able to schedule in, exercise, time to cook properly, the whole food that I know my body loves. Instead of running, I was running all the time, reacting to the next obstacle or crisis in front of me. And now I'm able to stay solid. I don't waver. I'm able to handle what comes my way. I'm able to back myself. I know that I'm resourceful. I will figure it out, which is so different from the energy I was working in before. And now I love my job. I love the work that I'm doing. I'm able to choose myself for the first time in my life. And that's really what comes from dissolving this blockage. So it is the journey from fear to safety, but safety allows you to relax. It allows you to have fun. It allows you to receive. It allows you to create. It allows you to flow. You can't do that while you're stuck in survival mode. You can't do that when you're in fight or flight. You can't do that when your own resources are depleted. So when I realized, hey, I have actually been scared my whole life. It seems like this is all I've ever known. Where did this come from? You know, my parents love each other. My parents are still married. They wanted to have me. My mom stayed home to look after me. So my level of fear did not match my childhood environment. Where on earth did that level of fear come from so early on? And it had such a big response in me, such a visceral response that lasted for 6 years, because it was actually something that I carried in from another life. I don't often go into past lives. I will if it is relevant to what we're working on, but you know, there's so much for us to clean up in this life before we ever start going into past lives. But this particular fear was something that I carried in from another life. And when I saw what it was related to, it's not even relevant to this life. It's not even going to play out in this life in any way, shape, or form. And so I was able to dissolve it in my Akashic records. And then I was able to start reconditioning myself through all of my energy bodies. So instead of my physical body now being tense and tight, now when I did yoga, I could feel my body relaxing. I could feel my posture changing shape. So my posture is now the best it's ever been, and I am the oldest I've ever been. I saw the changes in my physical body when I released the fear from my field. My energy skyrocketed. I go to bed at the end of the day and I still have energy left, and I'm excited about what I can create the next day. Whereas before, I was getting home, I was cooking a terrible meal because I didn't have the energy to cook properly. And then I was sitting on the sofa counting the minutes to bedtime because I just had no energy. And like I say, my emotional resilience is the best it's ever been, which means I have expanded my nervous system, which means I can hold more, which means I can up level as a healer, which means my potency has amplified, which has made work more fun again. So I hope that you are able to understand how the energetics play out in the background. And when we have this blockage, it really affects everything else. When we are chronically stuck in our sympathetic nervous system, all of our resources are going towards survival. And really, to heal, we need to be able to toggle into our parasympathetic nervous system. so that we can rest and wake up refreshed, so that we can digest. And by digest, I mean food. So you get rid of all your digestive issues. But I also mean you're more easily and readily able to digest situations, emotions, thoughts. You're able to take the situation or the emotions and you're able to digest it into a solution that you can use and discard the waste. So instead of ruminating and catastrophizing like I used to, now I can discern and I can take what's useful, form a solution, and I can leave the rest. We heal in this part of our nervous system. And if reproducing is something that is on your cards as well, that happens in this part of your nervous system also. So I invite you to DM me on Instagram and let me know the parts of this that landed for you. Like I say, this is a vulnerable share. This is not something that I have shared widely, but I feel like there are so many lessons for healers, but for everybody in this story. And for me, there was so much shame wrapped up in this experience. Shame is a different blockage that I will share more on another time. But if there are any, practitioners out there that have ever experienced this, then I want you to know that you're not alone. It does happen. Patients can, not always, can do it in the UK. It's called no win, no fee. So, you can have a pop, and if it doesn't work, then you don't have any legal fees to pay. So it is rife amongst healthcare professionals. And I've heard it described by patients, well, you guys are all insured, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. But to the healer who is heart-led on the other side, it can be catastrophic. But it was the lesson that helped me finally overcome the fear in my field. And I am the healer who is thriving and having the time of my life. So I wanted to share where I came from and where I am now, to give you some hope that this journey is possible and it doesn't have to take 6 years like it did for me. Once I dissolved it, the changes were really fast. And the next time something happened that would trigger me, I was neutral. It just didn't do anything to me. There was no emotional charge. And that's how I know this blockage is gone. I'm not managing it. I don't have to meditate to calm myself. I don't have to use mala beads. I don't have to jump on my yoga mat and move my body to make myself feel better. I do all of those things still, but I do them from a completely different energy. They're not a tool that I use to manage my anxiety. I do them for pleasure, to amplify my genius. Completely different. So, with that said, I look forward to connecting with you on the next podcast. I am rooting for you. We rise together. If you feel called, please rate and review. I would really appreciate that.